morning. It's wonderful to have Peter Dall here with us. And Peter is a legend in the deciduous industry. So he's made time to join us today. And we really appreciate you coming. So tell us, who is Peter Dall and what is his story?
Peter Dall's story is that he grew up in a medical family. My father was dean of the University of Cape Town Medical School. My uncles were all orthopedic surgeons. At the age of 5, I said, I'm going farming.
5?
5.
Good heavens, okay.
And the family all said, you're mad. You don't even know what you're talking about. I think I got my feel that I wanted to go farming. I went to passion. My dad, at that stage, was a general practitioner in Queenstown. And my grandfather was an attorney in DR, and he sold the farm in DR, sold the practice in DR, and bought a farm in Tarkastad. So every second weekend, we would go to the granny and opa on the farm and ride horses and shoot dussies and do all the wonderful things little kids love doing. So from the age from 5 to 10, that's what I did. And I thought, this is nice. Then Dad moved to Cape Town in 1957, and I still had this thing, I'm going farming. And Dad had a friend who was the assistant general manager at Greymead Farm, John Finley, and said, John, take my son for 2 weeks and cure him of this stupid idea. That didn't work.
We can see it didn't work so well.
So I went at the age of 14 to Greymead, worked with the labour, and every holiday thereafter I went back. So up until the end of my university training, my holidays were on Greymead.
Where's Greymead?
Greymead's in Fairboom.
Oh.
It's the main farm in the Fruitways stable. The Fruitways has about 1,300 hectares of their own farming, and Greymead was 300. So this was my passion, and John didn't do a good job of getting out of it. And then when I finished university, I had to go to the army for 9 months, but I said to my father, I'm going farming. And Dad said, what about a degree? And I said, no. Farmers don't need a degree. They just need to be able to work with their hands and think about it. I'm going. I think the fortunate thing that happened is going to the army, and the first night I'll never forget, we were in a bungalow with 40, and they started talking about their escapades in Woodstock and Salt River, and coming from a very sheltered southern suburbs home, it was a huge shock to find out that we were 40 in the bungalow. The only other person who had matric was Johan Crafts, who was his son. He and I had matric. The rest had standard 6 or standard 7. All worked on the railways because the engineering core.
What year are we talking?
We're talking 1965.
Wow.
But that was fantastic. And then I realized, actually very lucky that I can go to university. And this, I've got that privilege, and Dad's prepared to pay, I must go.
Very good idea.
And did you go?
I went, yes. I got into agriculture, struggled through the first year, which is a plain BSc, but managed to pass all without a hair, somehow or other. And then,
University of Stellenbosch.
I'll tell you a story about University of Stellenbosch later. But so yes, then second year, in those days, pomology and agriculture economics, and I knew Prof. Stradham already because he did some work at Greymead, and we worked with him. And my first exam in second year, I got a naught, plain naught. I said, no, Prof. I at least got my name right. He says, you're capable of much better than this crap you wrote me, and I'll teach you a lesson. I'll give you a naught. Well, I don't think I could do it today, but in those days you could do it. It was the best thing that happened. So I really enjoyed my time at Stellenbosch. It was fantastic. I had 2 wonderful professors, and Prof. Dankie Stradham, who's still a very family friend. I ended up being chairman of his family trust. So,
Wow.
yeah, we really got on well. And then Eckhart Kassir. And Eckhart Kassir, Prof. Eckhart Kassir, I hated for 2 years. He always was probing. Yeah, it's always questioning. And then I realized what he was trying to do is to get you to think
Made
out
you
of the
think.
box and everything. And then by the final year, I realized, no, I enjoy this professor. He's actually quite good. So I managed to cum my degree, which is amazing because I didn't do well at school at all and everything. And so that was a wonderful experience. And then I know Alistair Brodie said in his podcast that he and I went overseas for a year.
Oh, you listen to his podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
No, Alistair's been a very good friend and all that, but I got to know him when I was working at Greymead.
Yes.
I always remind him that I was his boss for a few years because I was the leading student and I had to look after the other students, but it was only a short while. But we went to America for a year.
A year? Wow.
Well, 9 months. It was a wonderful 9 months. Great experience. And we worked with legends in the industry. Ken Olsen, who did most of the maturity indexing work. Max Williams, who was the founder of chemical thinning. So
Wow.
we worked with them. It was a great experience.
Where?
We were mostly based in Wenatchee, but also sometimes in Yakima.
Where?
Washington State.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
apple. That's the apple.
Yes,
and pears.
that's where I want
If
to
you
get
drive
to
into
that, yes.
Wenatchee, you've got a
Okay.
big sign that says Apple Capital of the World.
Okay.
Only the Americans can believe that
Yes,
this
well-
is the Apple Capital of the world.
But with you coming from the Eastern Cape experience and the horse riding on the farms and everything, so getting onto an apple farm the first time, what was that like? And obviously, it had an impact on you because you stayed in that industry for the rest of your life.
No, it had an impact, and I think I didn't really know what I was wanting to do when I went farming. So I wasn't sure which direction. That's why I chose agriculture economics, because that covers any branch of farming. Digressing a little bit, so though my majors were agriculture economics and economics, and I did 2 years of pomology with Kees Freedom, and then I said, I'm now doing my final year with just the 2 majors. He said, no ways, you need pomology as a final too. So I said, but he said, we'll alter the timetable that you can do it. So I did 3 majors.
And you cummed your degree, so
Yeah.
passion definitely shows.
No, it was.
There you go.
It was, like a light bulb being switched on. It was really what I enjoyed.
Fantastic.
Had no regrets ever making that decision.
And then you progressed from where you had finished studying, and then
Okay, so one of the reasons why Dad said, stupid to go farming and all the rest, he said, I can never afford to buy you a farm. So I said, well, don't need a farm. Manage farms, it's fine and everything. So, yes, off just digressing a bit, so John Finley's son, Ian Finley, wanted to do medicine. So he was said to my father to get the stupid idea out of his head.
and he probably became a doctor.
Yeah, today he just retired, but he was the top anaesthetist in Somerset West. Anyone knows Ian Finley, he was a really good anaesthetist. So neither fathers worked. Yeah, so then you got to start working practical, and went to Oak Valley to Jimmy Rawburn-Viljoen, and Jimmy said, we'll employ you, but you're too highly qualified and all the rest, you're not going to last long. So, but you need experience and everything. So.
Yes.
And it was a wonderful, Oak Valley was fantastic. But I only spent 18 months there because Leo Fine, who ended up as chairman of the Deciduous Fruit Board, said, I've got a job for you. And I said, what's it? He had 4 Jewish friends in Sea Point who wanted to buy a farm in Villersdorp, and they needed a manager to develop the farm.
Okay.
So, long story short, I got the job to develop T. Wallace Cliff Farm. It had 2 hectares of apples, and I was given 100,000 rand in 1972 and told with 100,000 rand I must buy myself a bakkie, 2 tractors, build a house, and plant as many hectares with the change. The bakkie cost 1,400 rand, the tractor's 1,500 rand, the house was 11,000, and we planted 18 hectares with the remaining money. So it was a wonderful job. It was developing a farm from scratch. It taught me a lot. It really did, and I had lots of advisors. And yeah, one regret I've got is that when the farm came on the market, we never bought it. And I'm to blame. Alistair was prepared to help me and buy the farm. But so 1985, by that stage, I'd got a 18% share in the farm.
Okay.
So I had almost a 1/5 share. And it was a lovely farm, and we really enjoyed it and developed it. Just digressing totally, it's just been sold for 290 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that I was going to ask that if you for anybody younger listening to this, what would 18 hectares of apples cost to establish today?
Well, it's probably about 12 million, 13 million.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Help me, is Dewald the farm that is kind of behind the back of the mountain? You drive up and you drive down into it.
Yes, it's got its own
It's
little
a
valley.
magnificent farm.
It's a
I've
beautiful
been there.
farm. 1,700 hectares. It was a beautiful farm. So 1985, my 3 Jewish partners said they're selling. I said, you must be joking. This farm's just making
It's just
money
getting there
it's
now.
getting there. But there was a turmoil time in South Africa, and 2 of the partners wanted to go to America. One had already left, actually, Aubrey Glaser, and Barney Friedland followed him. And it was just Norman Gottschalk and I that stayed here. And Aubrey then said, okay, I've got a job for you in California. He developed a Granny Smith farm just south of Bakersfield in Southern California.
Okay.
Wow.
And I, for 5 years, went there twice a year to develop the farm with him. Can digress a lot about that. So
Almost can't think of an apple farm by Bakersfield. It's so bloody hot there.
Yes.
it shouldn't have happened. So what was decided was it had to have overhead evaporative cooling because sunburn would be
Yes.
100%. And there was a market for grannies. There was a good market, but it had to be green grannies. So water is relatively cheap there. It comes out of a great Californian aqueduct. And we put in this overhead irrigation system that really worked well to cool it down and everything. There was just one problem. The water in the Great Californian Aqueduct is very high in calcium. So the fruit went white as we put calcium layer after calcium layer. And we couldn't get it off. You just try what you did. So it was in trouble in 1985, but I was offered the job to come and fix it and put it right and everything.
So when you got there, they've already had this problem.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I knew about it. And, you can extract some of the calcium, and that's what we were going to do and everything, and change it. So 11th of May 1985, we were leaving the next day, the whole family, to go to California. So before this happened, Alistair said, come on, let's buy the farm. And I said, yeah, okay. We put in a bid for 4.2 million. Chap named Alan Silverman put in a bid for 4.4. We put in a bid 4.6. Alan put in a bid 4.8. And I said to Alistair, no, we horse trading this farm to a price that it's not worth. And I have been offered a job in California. Maybe it's meant to be that we go there. So everything was said. We had our farewell parties, we had presents and everything. And the next day, after 11th of May, we were leaving with the family. We were going to spend 2 weeks holiday in France and then go to California. And I got a phone call from Aubrey Glazer at 8 o'clock that night to say, sorry, there's no more job.
Oh.
I can't employ you.
Wow.
So we packed up, containers were packed, everything. So I phoned Alistair Moody and I said, Alistair, you won't believe what's happened. I've got no job, I've got no house, I've got really nothing now. He says, you're coming to work for me. So I said, Alistair, you haven't got a job for me. Don't just be charity. No, I've got. So Bernard Napier was retiring as the general manager of Greymead, and I got Bernard's job. So I ended up being John Findley's boss. So my mentor that taught me to go farming, I became his boss.
Yes, it's a funny old world, huh?
And it was tough.
Yeah.
Because John was farming 20 years ago, thinking I was now really wanted to go king. John was planting 6 meters by 6 meters, and I wanted to plant 4 by 1.5.
Oh,
Okay.
So we rubbed shoulders, but we still became great friends. We're still great friends. I mean, so much so that I did the eulogy at his funeral and everything. So we're still. If you'd asked me as a youngster, what is my dream? It was to become general manager of Greymead, which then became the Malseta Trust, and the Malseta Trust owned Greymead, Aikenhof, and the other farms, which became Fruitways. So I was MD of the beginnings of Fruitways.
okay.
Alistair likes to remind me that I'm the longest serving board member of Fruitways, because with him, we were the only two that were there right in the beginning. But and I got onto Fruitways board, off Fruitways board, so I've been there a long time. Fruitways is in my blood, I must agree. And after 5 years of this, I said no. When I dreamt of going farming, I didn't dream of spending my life in a boardroom. 3,000 people working for you, 16 managers reporting. It was a corporate world that really wasn't what I dreamt of. And I thought Alistair would be very cross with me after 5 years when I said, no, I'm quitting.
Enough already.
Really? No, he said, no, he understands. So we bought a small farm in Vleersdorp, Fredericton, Paddy and I. They also had nothing on it. We also had to start from scratch again. And that's when I said I'd go consulting, because I needed something to keep the bank manager happy. So 1990 I started consulting.
And when did you buy the farm?
1990.
Okay.
Same time.
Okay.
Absolutely. But I was telling you a story ago. So I phoned Prof. Dainke, and I say, Dainke, I want to go consulting. Do you think I can do it? I mean, have I got enough knowledge? Do you think I'm got the skills and everything? And he said, give me 3 days and I'll phone you back. And I thought, if he has to think for 3 days to that question, then I've got a problem.
Yes, indeed. You'd be a bit nervous.
Very nervous. Well, why would he think about it? So he phones me back 3 days later and he says, I've got your first 10 clients for you. And so
Isn't that incredible?
He phoned Dennis here and all the farms, and he got me my first 10 clients. And,
So he wasn't going to find out about your knowledge. He was just quickly getting you a client base.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible?
That's what he was about. Yeah.
Wow.
So yes, I started consulting in 1990, and Paddy ran the farm. My wife ran the farm.
I recall.
We packed nectarines till late at night. Our youngest daughter put herself to bed, everything. It was tough days. I mean, interest rates got to 25%.
Yes. Remember those years?
We really thought at times we wouldn't make it. But yeah, we soldiered through and got it. And it was a great time. I mean, our 3 girls all got married on the farm. We loved the farm. And I brought in a partner, a silent partner, Bruce Barrow. And Bruce was a great partner, but in 2014, he said, I'd like to get out now. And you got to weigh up, so I could buy him out. That was not a big problem. But you're creating debt at the age of 65, 67. And 3 daughters who I said, any of you want to farm? No, definitely not. they pulled enough onions and thinned enough peaches, and that. But they were cross when we sold the farm because they wanted their children to experience farm life and all the rest and everything. So,
And none of their husbands were into farming.
No, I don't think any of my son-in-laws.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a son-in-law. Die Afrikaans is Quintian. Hy's APK Dominee se seun. I've got a son-in-law who's a Methodist lay preacher's son, and I've got a Catholic Portuguese son-in-law. So I've got the whole lot.
Okay, so Christmas must be interesting.
Christmas is very interesting.
At least they've all got the same textbook.
Yeah, they're all New Testament. Yeah. No,
So you sold in 2014. Okay. Yeah.
I've carried on consulting.
Okay.
But Freelist was a wonderful time in our lives. It was really.
Where do you live now, Peter?
We live at Betty's Bay.
Oh, lovely.
The house is called Freelist.
Well, there you go. So you're still at Friedelist.
Yeah, moved.
Wonderful. So my knowledge of Peter Dall, I remember meeting you in the organized agricultural sphere. What motivated you to go into organized agriculture, and did that benefit your career in any way? Just go there. Tell us about that.
What motivated me? It's a good question. I don't really know. I think it's in one's genes a bit. If you've got a bit of a leadership or community spirit role. And I really am a people's person. I love being with people and working with people. Always captained the cricket team, was head of the cadet corps, always got onto Housecom in my second year. So I'm probably that kind of animal that wants to get involved and try and improve things. I mean, Paddy said when we sold the farm and it's going to slow down a bit, she says, well, just don't take on any more committees or any more directorships, please. What's happened? There's a little bookshop in the Botanical Gardens that's run by the Botanical Society, Kogelberg Branch of the Botanical Society. Who's running the bookshop? Peter and Paddy.
Well, there you go.
So it's probably in the genes. And then there were a few people that guided me to it. I think Prof. Dankie was there in a big role. So it started off with the CPA, Cape Horticultural Association, and that Dankie definitely had a role in pushing me there. And then Jim Button got me very much involved in Pink Lady, and Pink Lady was a wonderful experience. I think that was really a life-enriching experience. So
How were you involved there?
Good question. So Pink Lady was bred in Cripps Pink, who's the brand name Pink Lady, was bred in Western Australia by John Cripps and was owned by the Western Australian government. And Ali McKay and Jeff Godley were the two scientists who developed it, and then they said, this apple is really great, it's got unique, it's pink, it's got its own thing, let's brand it. So they branded it Pink Lady, which was a great name and everything. But they didn't really have any commercial idea of how to develop this further. So they sold the brand to a company in each country. So Top Fruit owned it in South Africa, Rousseau was owned in Argentine, Guangzhou owned it. So it was owned all over the world in separate things. And then they started realizing that this doesn't work. You can't have a brand that's got 20 owners. So they tried to recall it all, and they did recall it all, except in the United States and Switzerland, were the only two countries that wouldn't give the brand back. And that, in the end, caused quite a few problems and everything. So decided to create an international company to oversee the management of the brand. The brand at that stage had been moved from Western Australian Agricultural Department to APAL, Apples and Pears Australia Limited, which is like Hort Grove, it's the same organisation. So they own the brand. And we were due to have a meeting in Washington State, in Yakima, in 2001, and then 9/11 happened, and so that meeting was cancelled because of 9/11. We were quite happy to fly, but it's amazing how many weren't happy to fly at that stage.
Yeah.
It was a scary time.
South Africans are used to risk. So.
Yeah.
So it was reconvened for February 2002. In the meantime, APAL decided the real way to develop this brand was to sell it 50% of the brand to the supermarkets. And they'd approached Tesco and Sainsbury's and everything. So the meeting was convened in 2002, and Jim said, come along. We'd formed a Pink Lady Association in South Africa, and I'd just become chairman. But let's go. Because Jim was involved, he'd given the brand back, but he was still very much involved. It was a terrible meeting because all the other countries were now really upset with APAL to try and sell part of the brand to
The supermarkets. Mm-hmm.
It almost doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Your buyer is now controlling the brand. I mean,
yes.
It was a crazy idea. So John Durham, who was the managing director of APAL, was supposed to become the first chairman of the International Pink Lady Alliance. And especially the French, Pink Lady Europe's a very powerful body, decided no ways, not with what he's done. So I was minding my own business, which I normally do, and everyone said, okay, you know the new chairman. I said, I know nothing. I absolutely know nothing. No, you're the chairman. So
for the International Pink Lady
Alliance.
Wow.
I became chairman of an Australian company. It's registered in Australia, and I remember telling someone, applying for Australian visa, and I said, I've been a chairman of an Australian company for 12 years. I said, it can't be. So 2002 to 2014, I was chairman, and it was the good years of Pink Lady when we really did do well, got good premium. Corriggio did promotions in the UK, private company, and Pink Lady Europe did a great job. So Pink Lady was really developed extremely well in the UK and Europe. Not too much outside that, and that's been a bit of the problem as volumes have grown, and we've had to find new markets. So there's a big push now to develop it further in Southeast Asia.
Then you were the chairman from 2002 to 2014.
12 years.
Okay.
There's so many questions
I know.
one can ask about stuff like that.
Yes, in those years you must have really got around and seen incredible things. And
so the AGM was always in a different country. So there's 17 members of the International Pink Lady Alliance. So each country has either an association, like South Africa has the South African Pink Lady Association, which is really just an association. It's got no shares, it's got a committee, it's got a board of directors and everything. And most countries are like that, but if you look at in South America, it's the main producer, really. So Juan Rosawa in Argentina, he's a nursery, but they are the members. And Juan Concho in Chile, they're the members. So, but it works. It kind of works and everything. America was a member for a while, and then they withdrew because they didn't like the rules we made. And they had the brand. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the brand in America, it really hasn't gone anywhere because it just hasn't. There's been a good thrust from the international side. always said to the growers, the royalty for many years was 77 euros a ton. I said, and if that doesn't earn you another 200 euros, then it's not worth it. The brand must. And that was always our aim. It's got to get you 3 times your investment. And I think it still does.
A question on that, because you've been involved so long with brands, that we work a lot with breeders and people like that. And there's some interesting stuff coming up, not just in apples and pears, but in citrus. And how does one get a brand like that established to be another Pink Lady, or to be something that is as well received as Pink Lady? Because I think the Clement Gold brand did very well, for instance, but there's not many other. That Sunworld, obviously, with their grape varieties and things like that, but I do think there's an opportunity for more to do as well.
There's an opportunity, but it's very, very difficult. So Apes van Rooyen spent many a time we spent discussing brand development, because Clement Gold came after Pink Lady. I said, I can't tell you much, but I can tell you all the mistakes we made. And,
Well, that does help, I'm sure.
Yeah, those are the school fees.
Yeah, and that is, you must retain ownership of the brand, and you must keep the brand identity in a central place. Don't give other people chances to play with the brand. So how do you develop your first of all, to start off with a unique product, and it's really got to be a good product. And then you've got to get the right partners around the world to develop it. And the most important thing is to police it, because the IP protection is critical. I mean, we spent 10% of our budget making sure, because the Chinese were very good at printing Pink Lady cartons and putting, I mean, you'll find a lot of Fuji still in China marketed as Pink Lady. I mean, just put it in the put a sticker there. So policing is important. Control. You asked me that question. Because of that involvement, and new varieties is also one of my passions, and so I can tell you many stories, but Alistair is to blame for many things in my life. But one of them was 2008. I'd spent 6 years on the National Agricultural Marketing Council, NAMC, from 2002 to 2008. Interesting years. Toko Tedizo was my first minister that I reported to. Great respect for her. She's a really good lady. She's now the speaker. But after that, it went kind of, we had Peterson for a while, and that didn't work. And, so, chairman I served under for my last 2 years in the NAMC with Mohammed Quran.
Oh, yes, what a guy.
Mohammed and I became great friends. And I persuaded Mohammed to serve on Fruitway's board. I was back on Fruitway's board, even though I had no direct connection, although I did deliver my apples to Fruitway. So and Mohammed came onto the board, and Mohammed said, by that stage, we were procuring fruit from about 3,000 hectares. So we had 50 outside growers that we got fruit from. And Mohammed said they need technical support. We've got to give them technical support. We need to form a technical department like Tuda's got and Kromko's got and everything, but it's got to be slightly different. Peter, won't you write the business plan? So, that's fine. Spent some time, did a lot of consultation, wrote the business plan. And one night in Alistair's house with Mohammed and everything, we went through it. And I said, the success of this department depends on who you get the jockey. I mean, really, consulting is very much a trust game. If you don't trust your consultant, it will never work. And it's got to be vice versa. As we were leaving the house, Alistair said to me, you're just the right candidate to run this. So I said, you must be joking. I've got a big consultancy business. I enjoy it. But you need to earn a salary and not sell hours anymore and all the rest.
Sounds like you were easily persuaded into these things.
No, I said no. There's no way. And I got home and I said to Paddy, you'll be really proud of me. For once I've said no. I'm not going to do it. 2 months later, I said yes. They pressurized me and everything. And so Techways was born. And Techways was great. I was 2008, so I was 61. So I was given a 3-year contract to 64. It was extended to 65. And it was felt that I should hand over. So I handed over to Toby van Rooyen. And then Toby handed over to Keith Bradley today. So Techways have now been absorbed into Fruitways, a bit of politics. But so that's Techways started in 2008, and in about 2010, a company called IPA, International Palm Fruit Alliance, was formed with Chilean, American, Italian, Australian, New Zealand, and South African partners to look for new varieties. And again, I was persuaded to manage this company. And IPA's been great. I left IPA in 2019, just before COVID, and that was my own decision to leave. Spent 3 months of the year visiting countries all over. I can tell you more about apple breeding than anything. There are 80 apple breeding stations in the world, 40 of them in China. And we went to China twice, visited about 21 of the 40, and we saw nothing. I don't believe that there is no breeding taking place, but they weren't going to share it. There's no ways.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, the other two things that I know that you were involved with, we saw you yesterday at SAPU's 50th anniversary. I know you were involved there for a long time. And also Hortgrow. I think you were the first Hortgrow chairman, or after deregulation? Tell us a bit about that involvement.
Dewald has probably got right that I've got rubber arms and everything. But again, I was involved with SAPA, South African Apple Producers Association. I was vice chairman, and then decided my consultancy business was getting too busy, and I resigned, and so I wasn't involved. 1997 comes in deregulation, and Alistair Moody and Peter Graaf are sitting on the Deciduous Fruit board, and I get a call from Alistair, will I come and see him? And I come and see him, and he says, 1st of October, there's going to be no more Deciduous Fruit board, and someone's got to pick up the pieces. I mean, research, promotion.
It was a scary time.
It was scary. It was scary. August 1997. We're going to form a company or body called the Deciduous Fruit Producers Trust, and that's going to take up all the non-marketing stuff that Unifruco and DFB had done until that stage. And Anton Rabe is going to be the general manager because he was at SAPA at that stage. So SAPA was just being expanded, but it took in table grapes, canning fruit, everything into it. And you're the next chairman. I said, no, wait. I said, I really haven't got the time. I haven't got the knowledge. It's not my skill set and everything. So the next morning, I'm just about to leave, and Peter Graaf arrives on my doorstep, and he says, you're coming with me to Claremont. I said, what's happening in Claremont? No. They're having a meeting, and we've got to work out what we're going to do now when deregulation takes place. So the DFB was meeting in Claremont, which I didn't know. But I got there, and got persuaded to take in this job, which was scary times. Really, I mean, we had, I remember one specific meeting with John Stanbury and Peter Musselbrook, and because they were, Unifruca and the DFB controlled the industry. I mean, that was everything. So now, 1997, in 1 week, we went from one exporter to 138. Yeah, just overnight. And we were saying there's got to be some control and everything. And we were really asking Cape Span or Unifruca to help us in all this and everything. And I said, no, they're not going to help us. They're strong enough and big enough, they can do it all themselves and everything. And I really got cross with John Stanbury and said, you know, you're going to lose producers this way. You're going to lose fruit and everything. And he said, we're a marketing organization. If we don't have fruit, we'll market motor cars. We'll find anything. We don't need the producer. We'll find something. Look where Cape Span is today.
Yeah.
So, it was scary times, and maybe just the one real scary. So it was based on voluntary levies. And it's a levy per carton and per kilogram, and it was voluntary. First year we collected, I think, 92% of the levies. By year 3, we're down to 30%.
Wow.
And I really saw no future. I could see this thing was going to implode. You can't do anything without money. You have to have money to do it. So I actually resigned in 2000, and Chris Forer took over from me. But that's when I really admire Anton, that he just
Hang in there.
And he said, we got to go statutory. But to convince, the government wasn't keen on statutory. They really weren't. So we managed to go statutory, and I don't know if that's when I got involved in the NAMC and everything, but it was scary times, but also in those times I became chairman of the Deciduous Fruit Board in liquidation, and we had to get as much money as we could to put into development, trust and everything. So Eckhart Kassir, Peter Dall, and Gabby Guess had negotiated with Unifruca, particularly over the Cape brand, because we believed it was worth a lot of money. And if they were going to keep it, we wanted 70 million. And then we ended up getting 7. So we're not very good negotiators.
You got something.
Yeah, well, clearly, you didn't negotiate yourself out of the being the chair.
But I think something that, you know, we talk about it now, but for somebody who's listening who doesn't know what does deregulation mean? The fact that, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but farmers went from being farmers only. They farmed and they gave all their fruit to Unifruca to sell. They never had to think about the marketing. They never had to think about where it was going, how it should be packaged, how it should be presented, what brands should be on it, who they need to speak to. It was just done for them by a marketing service provider. And overnight, the marketing service provider disappeared, gone. And suddenly farmers had to become marketers. And every guy with a tie and a laptop and a good smile and a good handshake could come along and say they're going to sell your fruit. And a lot of people actually lost their businesses at that time.
That Unifruco and those, were they government institutes or not?
No.
So the Deciduous Fruit Board used to do all the marketing and everything.
Yeah.
The 1980s came and sanctions started to be so. A lot of the supermarkets would not deal with government agencies.
Okay.
So to bypass that, the Deciduous Fruit Board would grant an agency to one organization. So it's still controlled and everything. So quasi Unifruca was now a private organization. They got a license from the DFB to do the marketing. Okay. But it was really just an extension of the DFB.
Okay.
Yeah. In name, it was the same. The board of the DFB and the board of Unifruca, I think, had one person different. So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
It was more a section busting thing.
Yes. And that is a whole story in itself. The whole thing about how I wanted to do that. We don't have enough time to talk about that.
But it's so interesting.
It is extremely interesting how the
and-
sanction times.
and it comes back to the resilience of the South African
Yes, farmer.
farmers and to just make stuff work.
I think it's not going to go now, that doesn't matter. But the biggest exporter of apples out of South Africa was Swaziland.
Yes.
I believe, and also grapes and all sorts of other stuff.
Oceanic brand.
I have to share this because it's actually quite
Yes,
funny.
yeah.
My family were table grape growers in the Hex River Valley, and my sister was getting married, and it was going to be a garden wedding. It was going to be lovely and all the rest. And then it rained, and we had to move into the pack house, and the boxes were packed up behind her, and on all these boxes, in the back of the wedding photograph, it says produce of Swaziland. So that is a funny little story from the sanction years.
Swaziland was a big table grape grower.
Yes. That
I
you
believe
had
you
to,
saw one vine, you were lucky.
you had to do what you had to do in those
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
But times have changed, and our growers have had to become savvy about marketers. And as you said in an interview I saw, you said we've got rid of the scallums now out of who,
Lot of
because
them.
there were a lot of them at
Oh.
that time.
A lot. Yeah, so one of many roles that I played was mediating to try and get the exporter to pay a reasonable price, because I mean they would just come to Dewald and say, I can give you 100 rand a carton for your table grapes and everything. And when it came to paying, they only paid 10. They got all kinds of excuses why.
They
the
disappeared.
90s, they
Yeah.
disappeared. And then to try and get them to at least pay 60, and get a reasonable price. We succeeded in the witness. And that's when I got to know Gabby Guess well, because Gabby
I remember
helped us
Gabby.
a lot on that.
Wow.
Peter, tell us about your involvement at SAPU.
So when deregulation came, we really were just trying to pick up the pieces, and Anton and I would do. So I became chairman of Deciduous Fruit Producers Trust Research. We had an Exporters Forum, I became chairman of the Exporters Forum, and SAPO was just about to disappear in the deregulation because they had no funding. I mean, the funding dried up and our voluntary levies weren't working. So I became involved to really just try and rescue the place. So it was tough times for SAPO. As they said yesterday, they've been through tough times.
Yes.
They're going through tough times now. And I got involved. Soon thereafter, 2004, I became chairman. So I was there for 15 years. And some very good times, some tough times. But I think it's a very important role for SAPO to play. I really do. It's a tough role because the money is to be made their money is made in plant material, supplying plant material to the nurseries. If you take it, Top Fruit owned Pink Lady and Crips Red, today Joya. So they don't, all their budwood they cut themselves. None of it comes from SAPO. So SAPO depends on new varieties. So big bucks that Buxnell gave to them, that's a winner. But SAPO really hasn't got one Fuji apple in their stable. And that's a problem. And there's a conflict here because the big players, like the shareholders in Top Fruits or the shareholders in Star Grow, don't want SAPO to procure new varieties and everything. But I think SAPO's got a very important role in procuring new varieties because a lot of growers are then excluded if it becomes a top fruit variety or something, because top fruit's probably not that way. But what we are seeing, and there's kickback against that now, is the royalties on these club varieties is increasing. So, I mean, there's a good example, and it's not a South African example, but Jazz is a New Zealand bred variety by New Zealand Apple and Pear Research, and it's owned by Enza, which is now a private company, and the royalty on it is 15% of FOB. So if you
Wow.
sell for 100 Rand, you've got to give NZA 15.
That's a lot. Sure.
I know of at least 1,000 hectares being grubbed in New Zealand. So the chaps say it's not sustainable. Can't do it. So there you can kill a variety with royalties. And we see the same happening here. So my dear friend Jannie Wichman, and still cross with him, they didn't give bingo to Sapo, but that's another thing. Came with the apple and he said, I'm not going to have a royalty on it. There's no royalty. The royalty's on the tree, and that's okay. And there's a real kickback that people are looking for varieties that do not have production royalties. Because production royalty, you're tied in for life.
Yes. And it you are taking on a huge responsibility. There's a huge, you committed. You really are committed to actually be paying that out. So that's quite a big thing.
I don't mind paying the royalty if I can see that it's adding value,
Yes.
that it's been spent wisely.
Or that it's bringing the returns you want.
So, I mean, don't want to say, but there are some apple varieties that got a 3% FOB royalty. Not 1 cent gets spent on promotion, or some of it gets spent on packaging, but there's no promotional work being done. Now,
Which is vital.
vital. If you want to develop a brand, it's
Yeah, well,
vital.
especially in today's thing, because grapes is something that the consumer wants. Either he wants a white grape or a red grape or a black grape, but yet there's all those different ones, and there's varieties like Sunwool that is really pushing a brand on a particular variety, which that last year when we were at the Table Grape Symposium, where they said that on average, Pink Lady returns something like,
Considerably more.
I might be lying, but like 40 or 50%
More than the other generic apple.
Yes.
sitting next to it.
If you compare it to Golden Delicious, it's 150% more.
Yeah.
But if the average price for an apple today is probably about 6,000 Rand a ton, Pink Lady's 8 to 8,500.
Well, at least there is, you are seeing the premium.
For sure. And
Yeah.
yeah, and the fact that I think it's owned by a non-marketing company, it's really there just to promote the brand and everything. I think that's helped a lot. I mean, Enza owning Jazz is a big marketing company, competing directly with other producers around the world, really. And so it'll be interesting to see where this whole thing goes. So just quickly, so IPA, International Pale Fruit Alliance, we were looking for new apples around the world. I identified 3 that I think are going to be new apple champions. Probably they won't, but I've got one particular one that I'm really pushing hard now. But so one was Evercrisp. Evercrisp is a cross between Fuji and Honeycrisp. Impossible parents. I mean, Honeycrisp is, they tried it in South Africa, it didn't work, it just got bitter, but galore. Fuji is a 4-letter word beginning with F. So
Okay.
it's impossible parents, but the greatest eating apple you'll ever eat.
Wow.
It really is good. So a few of the IPA members are developing it. We still trying to work out if it'll work in South Africa. I don't think it will work here. The second one is a yellow apple out of Japan called Shinana Gold, branded as Yella, Y-E-L-L-A. Also, great eat, bright yellow.
Wow.
I mean, really that darker than that yellow.
Goodness.
But so it's
Yellow
now
apple.
seen as a overripe Golden Delicious. So
Okay.
so it will take quite a bit of marketing, but the Italians and Australians have done a great job, and Australians a very popular apple. Then the third one is an apple called Ipador, IPA, from IPA DOR, bred by Better 3 Fruit in Belgium. It's built like a truck. 18-month shelf life.
Wow.
It's
Sure.
normally we pick apples at 7 kilo pressure. You pick this apple at 11 kilo pressure. So it's a real crunch. It's high sugars. Gala, we struggle to get 10%. We 16 to 18% on this apple. High acid, but it's because the sugars are high, it's got a good taste. And it is built like a truck. You can't bruise it. It is as tough as anything. The problem is you can break your teeth when you bite into it.
Oh, wow.
So it's
You must
got
get the dentist to prescribe it for the children to pull the teeth.
So it's got to be stored for 2 to 3 months because it loses a bit of its brightness. But I mean, we have stored it for 18
Wow,
months.
that's
so,
incredible.
So it's been branded as a Giga. You can think where it
I've
comes
seen
from
that
now.
name.
Giga.
I've seen that name, yeah.
Yeah.
Gigabyte.
Yes, gigabyte. Love it.
So I've got a client in Elgin, David Curl, who very kindly said, okay, we'll plant. So we planted 6 hectares there, and it's been a great success. It's done well. So fruit trees are now rolling it out and we're starting to plant it. So I think everyone will tell you it's my apple that I identified. And you know,
Wow.
Again, what was really lucky about that whole deal, Nicholas Stevens is the head of Better 3 Fruit, and we negotiated with him, is IPA was able to buy the variety. We paid too many million euros for it, but it's ours. We can do with it what we want. We can decide what royalty, what promotions and everything. And I hope Stephen Ravi is now working, he's not chairman, he's the general manager of IPA, American, who's now chairman. And I just hope, the Italians love Giga. They think it's the greatest apple out, so they've planted hundreds of hectares, and it's been planted now worldwide. So I'd see Giga as the next Pink Lady. I really do. It's unique. It's the one apple we have it in our fridge, and for 12 months in the fridge, it's always
Incredible.
In the fridge at home.
at home.
Wow.
Well, I'm definitely going to go out and look for a giga.
Yeah, but
Yes.
can we find it on our shelves?
You can't find it on the shelves, but let me get you some. I will.
Well,
No, I will.
just curious.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So, Peter, you have been in the deciduous industry for a very, very long time. And I would imagine that you have reached out and helped many people and mentored people.
And being in the management or running of many
Yes.
organizations.
Yes. After quite a long career, and I know you're still busy, because I remember you telling me your wife said she married you for better, worse, but not for lunch. So
Correct.
you're still out and
Not
about.
allowed for lunch.
You're still out and about. And if I may ask, how old are you now?
77.
So, and you're still out there, and you're not home for lunch.
No.
So tell us, what are your thoughts on the industry and on going forward and what is required, and give us a little bit of your idea.
Well, I'm very positive about the industry. If we just look at apples, there are 24,000 hectares of apples planted in South Africa. There'll never be any more than 24,000 planted. There just isn't extra water. There's no more water. That's 1.5% of the world's production, so it's a small production. But we've got a lot of advantages. Africa is the biggest growing market. 1.2 billion people now, predicted to be 2 billion by 2060. Yeah, it's a poor economy, but we sell 60% of our apples in Africa now.
60?
60.
Wow.
We include South Africa and Africa together. So I think, and one of the big problems the world's got is labour to pick apples. I mean, Australia 2 years ago only picked 70% of the crop, the 30 they couldn't get off. So we have the labour advantage, which is a huge advantage, and we mustn't misuse it. We must do it. So I'm very positive about the career. So I will encourage anyone to come into it. Because I was so fortunate to have the John Finlay in my life to mentor me, and I mean, they really looked after me very well. Our house has always been open to students, and so we've almost always had a student staying in the house or something and worked with us. And Paddy said she never had any sons, but she's got lots of sons in the industry. So, and I just showed her the latest Hawk Road news. There's a picture of the two young farmers that went on their leadership program and just come back from America a year ago. Donnie du Plessis and James Hutton Squire. Both we mentored and everything. So I said to Paddy, this is really actually great seeing these two youngsters there and doing well and everything. So yeah, that's been my love, and so decided now it's the time to take it a little bit slower and explore South Africa, which I'd love to do. But unfortunately, Hortgrove got other plans. So I now mentor a few BE farms. Some was very stimulating, very encouraging. Some was so depressing. There was one on Monday, no names, and they were very upset with me. They said, I'm like a dictator, I'm not like a mentor. I dictate to them and I treat them like children and all the rest. And I said, sometimes you've got to be cruel to be kind. And if someone's
like it is.
Someone is not going to tell you that you're not going to make it, you can't make it unless you do this and this and this, then I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you these hard stories. But,
because if you know, then you can fix it.
I mean, Mariette said to me about this farm, Peter, give up on this. And I said, no, I'm not going to give up. But I'll keep on trying to get them to do it.
And some of the others that you're mentioning that are doing well, it must be quite nice to visit them and see the progress.
It's fantastic. One is in Laingsburg, of all places.
Not apples?
No, it's stone fruit.
Okay.
It's peaches, apricots, and nectarines. And again, we've just kind of focused them and everything, and they've had a bit of luck going their way. But they will be totally on their feet, profitable by next year this time.
Fantastic.
And it's all dried fruit. They dry it themselves. They wanted to export. I said, look, you're in Laingsburg. You got
it's a long way to the coast.
And everything. Yeah. Dried fruit, you can dry every single fruit.
Yeah.
If it's half fraught, you could just cut away the fraught side and you dry the rest. And we had a meeting with PepsiCo on Tuesday, and PepsiCo says it's their top 5 quality dryers.
Fantastic.
Wow. That's incredible.
And it's for coloured folk, and they run the farms, 4 of them fantastically.
Wow.
It's really good to hear. It's very encouraging to hear the good news, because bad news spreads itself. Good news needs a little bit of help. And if you're going to see them and it's going well, that's really good to hear. The last question.
You still got some on your phone?
Okay, then I'll have to wait and go. I'll have to look.
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine.
We have a tradition. Yes. Our last question is a random question, which we ask the previous person to ask for the next person without knowing who it's for, and we will ask you a question. But I just have to grab my phone and see whether it's actually always quite fun, and you get interesting answers.
I heard you do that, Alistair.
Okay, here's one, because seeing that you've been in so many leader positions, true leadership is letting go of control. Do you agree with that?
I do agree, but it's not one of my strong points. I am a bit of a control freak, and I have to lecture myself about that often. But true leadership is when you leave the organization, you can still carry on doing well, and you've been able to mentor everybody there that they can do the job without you being there. I agree with that. I'm not saying I'm good at it.
Peter, it's been incredible chatting to you. I think we can wrap this up, and we've literally just touched on many things.
Yes.
But we have touched on them, and maybe we'll find another opportunity to chat to you again. But I think we've done very well today. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
And we've got to say that Earl van der Walt, whose next podcast is coming out soon, graciously gave us one of his boardrooms to
Yes.
come and set up and do the recording. So I just need to put a little
Thank
thing
you
in for
very
him.
much to Earl for that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thanks a lot.
Wondered how you got in here.
Thank you.
Okay.